So let's get underway. Our first player, hailing from Germany. He represents the last call points for all of Europe. Please welcome to the stage, Sintolol.
Yet a year-long journey to get here and a nail-biter of a last match. Can he keep his run going?
A fellow European, a member of the Russian community, and the supercomputer himself. Please welcome to the stage, ShtanUdachi.
He has over 42,000 wins on his account, but this next match is the one that matters now.
Do this! ShtanUdachi versus Sintolol.
Sintolol, the best grinder in game, so he was 2 times in last call.
So ShtanUdachi, pretty cool guy, I like him, talked to him a bunch at this event.
Sintolol probably not the best tournament player, he probably never win big tournament, but he very persistent.
I think I'm favored against his lineup, but he's a really good player, so it's gonna be a close series. I'm really excited for that one.
ShtanUdachi versus Sintolol. Ready, set, go!
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Hearthstone World Championship. We're about to get underway with Sinto versus ShtanUdachi. And I saw them both backstage, Admirable, and they were looking pretty happy. And they better be, because they're both in the winner's match.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great time to be happy. You know, I would say that there's one player that doesn't seem to take the matches too terribly seriously. Honestly, it's Sintolol.
Yeah.
He's been pretty easygoing and not really worrying too much about his matches, and I think that's important for him. He's got one of the weirdest lineups in the tournament.
Yeah, also maybe helping him relax a little bit. But he defeated Purple in his first round match in a close series. Despite saying that he was an overwhelming favorite against Purple's lineup, and went all the way to game number 5, and he fell 2-0 in the first 2 games. So had to, complete the reverse sweep. ShtanUdachi took out Ant, who has now been eliminated by Purple. So now these guys are going to go up against each other. But taking a look at their deck list, and I think Sintolol should be a pretty overwhelming favorite coming into this one. And he sort of, like Frozen, made that next level read of, well, if everybody brings the best stuff, I'm going to bring the stuff that beats the best stuff.
And that was something that ShtanUdachi really tried to do as well. He talked to us in his interview about how he tried to experiment. He's always been known as a deck builder and someone who is pressing those creative lines to try to find the next deck that really is going to help him get through a tournament. Couldn't quite find it and instead brought standard decks. And that was something that he said made him somewhat unhappy. It's something that Sintolol and Frozen very much did, and so far have had some pretty good success with. I'm curious to see if it's going to keep it up, because the one difference between Frozen's mage deck and Sintolol's is that Sintolol's has got many more threats at the top end, and as a result can be a bit slower.
That's very true. I think Sintolol is playing the lineup that ShtanUdachi wishes he was playing at the end of it all. But it's hard to pull the trigger on that, because if you make the wrong read, you look kind of silly. And that's why not many players did it. They brought the best stuff because overall, they figured that that was going to give them a better win rate. But taking a look at this matchup in particular, the one card that you have to keep in the back of your mind is the Skulking Geist in Sintolol's deck. That's right. That's why this matchup is considered pretty good for him, is because at the end of it all, he can deal with
everything,
and then at the end of the day, all the Jade Idols are gone. So ShtanUdachi, I think he's going to want to get the Jades online early, because if you get your Jade Idols destroyed before you get to play them by the Skulking Geist, then your Jades all of a sudden have a maximum pressure. And so you want to get the ball rolling and pressure early. That's how you're going to win.
I will be curious to see how Shtan ends up playing the matchup, because he is bringing the versions a little bit more tuned for aggressive matchups with the Oaken Summons and Ironwood Golem. Those don't tend to be very good versus the slower matchups. They are quite heavy cards and don't really add much pressure. They're pretty much strictly suited to defensive purposes. When you run Oaken Summons, it means that you cut Jade Spirits from the deck, so the Jades don't ramp up quite as much if you're not cycling through idols very quickly. So an important thing to think about is how quickly Sintolol can find Skulking Geist, and if by that time Shtan has ramped his Jades or not. Without ramping him, he's not going to have Sintolol under much pressure at all, so that gives those giant cards that he has in his deck time to develop and hit their stride.
Yeah, I practiced this matchup quite a bit leading up to the event. I was playing not as greedy of a list as Sinto, but it was still had Skulking Geist, still generally the same game plan. As long as Skulkengeist wasn't in like my bottom 5, or the Jade Druid didn't play Fandral and get a lot of Jade Idols early to get their Jade count up, I would pretty much cruise to a victory. But there is that possibility, and there's also the possibility of, like we mentioned, just being pressured early.
Yeah, it can happen, but there's a lot of clear in Sintolol's deck that handles this stuff quite efficiently. And you notice that he actually kept Frostless Jaina off the mulligan. It's such a vital card to the matchup since it gives you so much gas to work with, the extra life, just the pressure against Shtan. At some point, Sintolol does need to deliver a killing blow as well. And since he's got the extra threat count, it's that much harder for Shtan to actually hold off throughout that time. So I will be curious to see if Sintolol favors, maybe pressuring Shtan a bit more, or if he's going to try to draw a bunch and be defensive.
Yeah, also they're spacing out removal. Using the removal at the right time. Yeah, he's got a ton of removal, but if he uses it in the wrong order or at the wrong times, then he can put himself in awkward positions later. And I think the biggest one is using Dragon's Furies earlier, because you don't want to risk drawing all of your big spells and then not having Dragon's Fury be a reliable clear, or drawing all of your spells and it not being a reliable clear.
That is a nice way to start the pressure for Shtan.
Oh, yeah.
Malfurion early on is honestly pretty close to equally important with the Jades, I would say. And it's just the 3 damage turn after turn. It means so much for Sintolol's life total. He's relying on being able to clear minions turn after turn to really play his major defense. So when that damage is coming directly from ShtanUdachi, it's going to require a water elemental to eventually stop that.
And now Sintolol has drawn a lot of the big spells in his deck. He's got the 2 copies of Blizzard, which are both in hand, the 1 copy of Flame Strike, which is in his hand, and 2 Meteors. So the only big...
It's not a bad thing, though.
It's not a bad thing because he has all the removal, but Dragon's Fury is going to be less consistent considering he only has Firelands Portal as the last remaining big spell. He's got a couple Polymorphs, and of course the Ice Blocks, which we saw him pull out from the Dragon's Fury the previous turn. Yeah. So
I would say he's in quite a good position, though. I mean, when he draws all these big spells, it means that he can chain his removal together and actually get pressure going because of Dragon Color Alana. That's one of the cards that he's included that Frozen has not. And that added pressure, something that Druid has historically struggled with, is wide board states all at once. The importance of the timing of that pressure. So I would quite like to see him start chaining together these big spells and set up that Dragon Color Alana sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at this point, that's really all he can do, unless he just wants to sort of pass the turnover.
Yeah, I think in this position, it was between Flame Strike or Blizzard to try to set up further positions for him. And I'm not really sure in the grand scheme of things that it matters too much. He is playing for a bit of a mana efficiency here. But in the long run, I think a lot of the pressure boils down to the fact that he's just got Dragon Color Alana right now.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, Sintolol looked pretty happy. He seems relatively relaxed and about his matches, which is a good thing. But when we were talking to him earlier in the week, he was talking about sort of his fear of making mistakes. So let's hear from his own words.
I think my playing tournaments usually is fine. Like, you're probably going to see that I'm playing fine. I'm not... I really hope I'm not messing this up. But most of the time drop pretty early. But I want to work on that, especially this year. I told myself, you're going to make championships or playoffs once at least. So that was my goal for this year.
You know, I said that he was taking things pretty casual and calm, but looking at him on stage, he's looking stressed.
He's a much different person when you see him backstage right before a match than he is when he actually sits down and starts playing. It's a much different environment.
You know, I am curious how much of this is intentional as well. I mean, is he maybe trying to send Shtan a different message than he's actually feeling himself in this position? You know, those guys are sitting right across from each other. You just look across the screen and see the other guy.
This is starting to get a little bit sketchy for Sinto, though. ShtanUdachi with the early Malfurion has been able to put on a lot of pressure. And with 8, 11, 15 damage being represented on board, ShtanUdachi's actually already quite close to popping an Ice Block.
Yeah, I think some of this does depend on the level of that Jasper Spellstone, which is not fully leveled up, I don't believe.
No, the image is still the just medium Jasper Spellstone.
Extra life from the Water Elemental is something that Sintolol is really relying on to help him through this. And again, just look at how much AoE that Sintolol has in hand. I imagine he's feeling quite comfortable at 15 right now. It is a matter of time until he gets through all of this.
I'm thinking probably a ping on the 1/1 and then a blizzard. Dragon's Fury right now, the spells left remaining in Sinto's deck are 1 Firelands Portal, 2 Polymorphs.
Nice block.
Yeah. So actually Dragon's Fury is likely to be, you know, on average like 4.
Well, it could be quite good if it's 4 in this spot. You know, he's got 2 6 health minions secured on board, and ShtanUdachi's board is weakened. He's also, he's just, so much of his board space is occupied at this point. It's difficult for him to really get the ball rolling here. And when he starts seeing how much removal is going to come out of Sintolol's hand, it's going to get tougher and tougher, I think.
Jades are starting to get pretty big. Aya's going to make that more of an issue. The thing for Sinto here is not only removing this board, but also, again, drawing into Skulking Geist and, you know, starting to put ShtanUdachi on the back foot, because eventually he's got to kill him.
Yeah, I practiced some with this deck as well, and you know, a couple games I ran into positions where Skulking Geist was in, you know, semi-bottom 3 or 4 cards. By that point, it was too late. He does need to draw Skulking Geist, I think, at some point, or have a giant Dragon Caller Alana turn. But if Shtan is, you know, chaining together draw spells with Ultimate Infestation and a lot of Jades, it's much more difficult for Sintolol to land that on the same turn. Shtan instantly reaching for the Jade Idol there. I mean, is he shuffling this? He's shuffling.
Okay, he has the solid read that no Skulking Geist is in hand.
Oh, is he going to go for draw here? That's the one that makes the most sense to me. So trying to redraw Jades, it looks like to me.
I mean, the armor total really doesn't matter because they're not going to burst you down. It's not Highlander Priest where you need to start getting that life total up pretty early on to play around those big combos of damage later on.
There's one of them.
Just going to continue to build up a big board. Sinto trying to do the math, trying to see if maybe Dragon Caller Alana is able to be played. But if he does that, he doesn't get a ping in, so he can't get another water elemental. He's also got a ton of damage staring at him on the board.
He loses Ice Block in that position.
He would lose Ice Block in that position.
Time melts away.
Yeah, that's a vital resource to have when you're about to swing that game 100% back around.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a substantial swing, though.
And there's always Medivh. He can still get the ping in, so he can take additional damage off the board.
I'm looking at some Meteor shenanigans here. You know,
yeah.
Maybe he can isolate the Eye of Blackfall, clearing off the rest of the board. Use a Meteor, drop the Arcane Tyrant alongside of it, and try to get that big swing. Buy the time to be able to find one of those power turns.
Yeah.
Looks like it's what he's going for.
The Arcane Tyrant is an elemental, so it does have lifesteal once Jaina has been played.
Yeah, look at that. Isolates the Eye of Blackfall. I think this is very wise from Sintolol. Don't wipe that out and give your opponent a bigger minion. Make them utilize a fairly weak one that's on board right now.
Yeah. A nice solid cleanup by Sinto, but not out of the woods just yet. That's definitely a step in the right direction. It's all about trying to set up a turn where he can make a bunch of 5/5s. And a 3/3.
I think we're getting pretty close to that turn. I mean, look at how many giant spells that he's played already. We're looking at Dragon's Fury, 2 Blizzards, a Flame Strike. That's a lot of dragons. So 2 Meteors.
2 Meteors.
Play that, yeah.
2 Meteors, 2 Blizzards. Flame Strike.
That's 6 dragons. That's the most you can make.
Yep. It will be a full board.
Or 5 dragons. I'm sorry, the second Dragon Fury is in his hand.
Death is eternal. My turn is not yours.
And I think Shtan's got to be pretty worried about this lifesteal too. It just starts to get out of range. It opens up Sinto to be able to play these big threats.
Also doesn't want to get frozen.
True.
That's one of the worst things that can happen to him right now. How about 2 big things?
Well,
I have a feeling that Sintolol may make a lot of big things.
If second swipe is in the hand from Sintolol's perspective, which is really likely at this point, considering there's only 4 cards remaining for ShtanUdachi.
The thing that gives me comfort for Sintolol taking that risk is him drawing the Arcanologist. If he hadn't drawn that, he wouldn't be able to secure another turn, guaranteed. So if he plays Dragon Color Alana here, he makes a ton of minions, and then his block gets popped. He gets to play Arcanologist, crack back for 33 damage, and then set up another ice block. It is, I would say, close to impossible for ShtanUdachi to win from this perspective.
Well, Spreading Plague is going to block a lot of those shots, and then Sintolol will have to make the decision, well, do I have to clear out these minions, or do I start pressuring? And
Spreading Plagues, then that means he's not popping the ice block.
True. That's very true.
Yeah, this is about as close to the maximum risk you can take as you can get with this Dragon Color Alana. It's just very thin and I think quite safe.
And now ShtanUdachi has to make the decision, which one is more important? Is protecting your life total or popping the ice block? Which one makes more sense? And, you know, from his perspective, he does have Ultimate Infestation as a way for him to deal additional damage. But if he's taken a lot of damage by popping the ice block and then goes into fatigue from Ultimate Infestation, he needs 2 additional turns from the ice block and then the lethal damage to be able to survive in order to get to that point.
I'm wondering if that means that Shtan's going to be trading here at all. You know, maybe, I don't know, he's just pushing. But again, I perceive this personally as quite safe for Sintolol, given the amount of damage that he's going to put out in the next couple turns.
Yeah.
How often do you see this much stuff on board?
Not very often. I mean, you know, this big mage, control mage, whatever you want to call it, has sort of been taking the tournament scene by storm. If you look at some of the Tour Stump qualifiers that have been happening and some of these Open Cups, I think, to be honest, if we had waited a week before Worlds, that we would see big mage in a lot more lineups.
I'm quite curious about killing off the 9/9 in this spot for Sintolol. I thought this was a great turn to just go ahead and push as much damage as possible and really put Shtan to the test. I mean, there is a second Spreading Plague. No, there's no second. He cast it earlier to make hand space.
Yep.
So that was the second Spreading Plague. Sintolol, I mean, maybe he sets up like close to 100% lethal in this spot, or has an effective way to go about it. There's so much going on when there's this many minions on board that it's tough to know exactly what the player's thinking, but he's looking to simply counter-punch with the backup of that Arcanologist.
Well, I mean, there's 35 attack on board. So ShtanUdachi's got to take some of this off, but Sintolol is probably doing the math in his head. Well, I can get a guaranteed ice block the next turn with Arcanologist. I have double Firelands Portal, but probably going to be able to use one if my block is popped next turn. He may try and set up a situation where ShtanUdachi, say, has to use Ultimate Infestation to pop the block if he, you know, like freezes the face with a Water Elemental. But he's doing the best he can. Sintolol is desperately trying to figure out what minions have not been played. So the last 2 cards in ShtanUdachi's deck are Oaken Summons and Nourish.
Time melts away.
He clasps his hands, start thinking, he's like, wait, what were they?
Because Dirty Rat's just a nice way to block a bunch of damage if there's no minions, but...
Right, so did Shtan actually just make the other... Was that his last Jade Idol then?
I believe so.
I must decide.
And
wow.
The time is now.
I was wondering, I was like, he is playing the... Wait, did he just Hero Power instead of using the Ice Block?
Well, he can still play the Ice Block as well.
Oh, gotcha, I see it now.
Yeah. Oh, and a taunt. So now Shtan is in a position where in order to pop the Ice Block, he has to play Ultimate Infestation, but that will put him into fatigue. ShtanUdachi realizes no way out for him, concedes, and Sintolol navigates his way to a Game 1 victory.
That's the difference that the threat count makes for Sintolol's deck. And Frozen would not have had the opportunity to make that kind of counter pressure because he's not included Dragon Color Alana. Sintolol demonstrating why it's a vital card to his deck.
Yeah, and I think ShtanUdachi did navigate that one pretty well, playing aggressively with his Jade Idol, shuffling them in when he knew Skulking Geist wasn't in the hand, and trying to play them all and put on the pressure. But At the end of the day, it wasn't enough, and we'll see if ShtanUdachi can bring it back in game number 2 right after this. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Hearthstone World Championship. We have a wonderful crowd here in Amsterdam who are excited to watch some card slinging action. And I'm excited too, Admirable.
I am too. I was excited to hear some of Tyson's and Firebat's thoughts on the tournaments and how they've evolved over the years.
They talk like they're super old. Like, oh, back in my day,
We didn't have fancy deck trackers.
yeah. And,
Card trackers.
Then you look, Firebat's 21. Won a world championship when he was 18. So they talk about it in a funny way, but we'll get back into this one. Sintolol currently has a 1-0 lead over ShtanUdachi in this winner's match. Winner of this moves on to the quarterfinals, so a lot on the line. Being able to have that, at least the first half of tomorrow as a break to be able to watch the rest of the matches and, get yourself mentally ready. This one's going to be Tempo Rogue versus the Jade Druid from Sintolol. He's got a much greedier version of Jade Druid than we've traditionally seen in this tournament.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the theme of Sintolol's lineup. He didn't expect people to be quite as aggressive, I don't think. And as a result, he ended up with a lineup that was a little bit slower and not as defensive against aggressive decks like what ShtanUdachi has right here. Think to ShtanUdachi's lineup, he had Open Summons with the Ironwood Golems. Sintolol's got Jade Spirits instead. He's got a copy of Arcane Tyrant. So it's a little bit harder for him to mount a defense, but I would say it packs a bit more of a punch if you're able to keep on touch with ramping your Jades and ramping your mana. The Captain here is what's going to make that exceptionally hard. The Nourish for extra mana, I think, is great. But things are going to get very difficult quickly after this.
Yeah, the Arcane Tyrant is actually quite good. And he is going to be able to clear off stuff. So it's just about stifling the pressure. But ShtanUdachi, he's just going up the curve. He's got backstab Elven Neutral as an option. He can just try and, play more aggressively and go for the Serenite Chain Gang. But he's going to take an opportunity to draw a couple minions because that's going to make his options much wider.
Look at
as we get going.
how fast Shtan's playing. This is like when he's back in his form. And this is like what it was like in Bahamas. He just played at a blistering pace the entirety of the time. And early in this tournament, he was taking his time a bit. He was thinking a bit slower, but suddenly he's just entered comfort mode and everything seems at home again.
A lot of times what it does is it sort of forces his opponent to match his pace of gameplay. They feel like, Shtan's playing fast, I gotta play fast. And that puts them out of their comfort zone because I guarantee you they don't have 42,000 career wins in Hearthstone.
TJ's gonna talk fast, I'm gonna talk fast.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Jade Spirit, Jade Blossom.
Attacking with the Elven Minstrel here. Think about where it's gonna go. Also for all of his cards. There's the first trade.
I can't keep up. That's what Sinto's feeling.
I think this was a great turn from Shtan, too. He gets to set up the Corridor Creeper, just get extra pressure down, and really look for a big Vile Spine swing. He knows that Sintolol is likely rapidly approaching Ultimate Infestation because so much emphasis was put on ramping. But this turn for Sinto is looking quite dead, and that could mean that he is approaching quite dead.
Yeah, this one's tough. If you nourish and draw cards, you just sort of fill your hand with stuff that you're probably going to get next turn with Ultimate Infestation. He's thinking, is it worth it to try and find something other than Branching Paths? Would I ever do something else other than Branching Paths? The benefit of playing just the Branching Paths this turn is that he can hero power down the Southsea Captain, which if he's planning on playing Ultimate Infestation next turn on the Corridor Creeper, then that Captain is going to get in for 6 points of recurring damage. So,
That's right.
I honestly think that he's got to just pretty much ignore the Nourish off the top and just play like he would if that was a dead draw.
That's exactly where he's going. The armor here is, I think, very vital to him. It's playing a role of, say, Frost Nova in this spot. The goal is just to buy him as much time as possible so that he can realize the value of the cards that he'll be drawing from Ultimate Infestation. This is quite a big swing, but this is why cards like Cobalt Scalebane are in the deck for ShtanUdachi. I don't think that they're the strongest cards in the world, but they do a great job if your opponent stumbles for one turn. That's a card that either works very well or it doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
And here it's working very well.
And that's a pretty good target to hit. He didn't want to hit, one of these 5-attack creatures because he wants to sort of spread out the amount of power he has on the board and make it tough for Sintolol to have that removal. It also trades quite nicely into this.
Wrath and Spreading Plague drawn. And Forgotten King. But this is a lot of damage he's about to take.
It's a 6/6 Bone Mare.
Spreading Plague playing a also a very similar role to Frost Nova will in this turn. I guess he could change up his game plan a bit, but that Wrath is no longer looking very good. So now I look at this situation and wonder, is Forgotten King ever going to have to look at armor in this spot? You know, maybe it's like a Spreading Plague Vandal turn and hope that there's no Bile Spine on the other side.
And then play Forgotten King the next turn and get the double dip for the armor and the crystals with the Vandal sticking on board.
The big downside of that is if Vile Spine is in ShtanUdachi's hand or not, he's going to be paying some sort of price.
And that price is probably the game, because if he doesn't get the 7/7 body down from Forgotten King this turn, he has much less power to fight on the board. So,
and I think that's why he's doing it this turn. He's like, you know what, I don't need that much. I need to get some minions on board. I need to fight back at what's presented. Right now, my hand's not going to get it done.
Yeah.
Oh, the Forgotten King and then Spreading Plague also only buys him 2 minions.
Yep, yeah, 1 less.
Yep.
And that means Shtan can push additional damage, but I think he's just going to play to go for a big board, kill the Forgotten King so it doesn't trade back on his minions, and basically just present the exact same board state as the previous turn to Sinto with just more stuff.
This is quite an interesting turn as well, where there is some incentive for ShtanUdachi to actually trade the Bone Mare over and preserve the 5/6 body, so that way what's on board doesn't trade through it right now. It's a sacrifice of some damage, but you have to look at what that means for Sintolol's next turn. If it means that it's that much more awkward, big benefit for ShtanUdachi. He's going to opt for damage. Yeah. Sintolol has to basically kill the entire board.
And then after that, he pretty much has to worry about Leroy, because at the moment, with the Prince Kaliseth being played, Leroy plus just a dagger hit is 8 damage. So
Sintolol's pretty darn dead.
What to do?
he can try and Wrath to draw a card into second Spreading Plague. But that's just sort of delaying the inevitable, because he's not tearing through any of this board. He can clear off the 1/5/5. And I think that's his only out.
Desperate times call for desperate measures.
He's got to hope. He knows that there's 2 flame elementals in the hand of ShtanUdachi if he's been keeping track of these 2 fireflies that have been played. So he's got to hope that the other 2 cards are basically duds at that stage. And he has to draw on the Spreading Plague exactly from this Wrath, which he does not find.
Yep.
ShtanUdachi takes the win and ties up the series at 1 apiece.
A big win for Shtan, because that's a matchup you need to win.
It is a matchup that you need to win, but it's also the matchup that probably fares the best against Sinto's lineup. The best deck for Sinto in that case would be his Big Mage, his Big Spell Mage, and that has already taken a win in the series. So his other 2 matchups for the Temper Rogue were quite unfavored for Sinto. So,
I mean, you know me, I've always been quite worried about the Druids, the Jade Druids specifically, picking up wins in this tournament. I feel like a lot of the aggression is pushing them outside the box, and one of the reasons I've liked the Ironwood Golem package thus far.
yeah, well, we'll see who's going to come out on top in game number 3. But coming up next, a huge match, if I do say so myself. Frozen versus Surrender. A lot of people's favorites to win the whole thing. Frozen based off of lineup, and Surrender based off of his near perfect play throughout the Summer Championship, which he won, and now so far in the World Championship.
Yeah, one of those 2 is going to be moving on through the group stage. The other one will have to battle the winner of this match that we're currently in. Let's go ahead and get into game number 3. ShtanUdachi versus Sintolol.
Yeah.
And something else that's big to note here, though, is the combo Dragon Priest that Sintolol has. Almost every representative in the tournament had brought Highlander Priest in some form, whether it was a Dragon form or traditional. But Sintolol brought the Divine Spirit Inner Fire Priest, and I think it is quite good versus what ShtanUdachi has remaining. So I'm really looking forward to that match. But this one right here, I have to give the edge to Sintolol, given that he's got Jade Spirits.
He's just greedier, and right off the bat, ShtanUdachi draws into both Ironwood Golems right off the bat, which means that Oaken Summons will summon Fandral if he's to draw before Fandral, but the second one will basically just be that gain 6 armor. So that's not what you want to see early on, but he does find some ramp, so that's a benefit. But Sinto's got a little bit more ramp, and when you have more ramp and more top end, you're looking pretty good.
The important one to me is the Jade ramp in addition to that. Eventually, if your Jades are just bigger than your opponents, the first time that you get that second Jade Golem where your opponent's behind, that can almost outright end the game. So the fact that ShtanUdachi is absorbing this pressure early on means a lot less than when Sinto's able to ramp his mana and then just keep ramping his Jades. I think Shtan is in a lot of trouble so far.
We'll see though. Nourish is going to be a great tool for him to sort of scale up that top end.
Well, both players drawing some fairly weak cards thus far. So Sinto may favor the branching pass for card draw here. A big payoff would be like a second Jade Blossom or finding an ultimate infestation so that he can craft a game plan.
Just as sort of searching for information. And there's the ultimate infestation.
Oh my.
Let's see what he picks up next. Another Jade Spirit.
His turn 8 is quite large.
Huge, some may say.
8 mana turn, rather. Not turn 8.
Common misconception.
Shtan going to gain 6 armor rather than draw the extra card. That Eye of Blackpaw giving him some confidence that maybe he can get aggressive here. He's got a couple of copies of Swipe as well. This may be a turn that ShtanUdachi can put the task to Sintolol and see if he can answer the threats that are coming back.
The armor is kind of curious, though. He's expecting to sort of draw additional card draw in the next couple turns, whether it be Ultimate Infestation or that second Nourish. Otherwise, I think you're taking the card almost every time.
Well, Shtan's got a lot of pressure here himself. Like, the Eye of Blackpaw that's just a difficult body for Sintolol to handle effectively.
I mean, he's got his own double swipe to be able to clean up the board, and then following that up with an Ultimate Infestation. I think this one is... yeah, that double swipe is going to be a pretty easy full clear.
This is really going to boil down if Shtan draws some heat next turn, because he's really the one who's under the clock. Sintolol's got Medivh. He's got the Jades that are in there. He's got Forgotten King. ShtanUdachi's is very straightforward and pretty much on the defense plan.
So he actually opts to go for a Spreading Plague here as opposed to the double swipe. Double swipe would have cleared the board, would have left him with a 4/4, I believe, and he would have been rolling into Ultimate Infestation with a board advantage. I suppose the
very similar. I mean,
I suppose, yeah, and also the argument could be maybe Spreading Plague's harder to use as the game goes on.
Absolutely.
Swipe is almost always going to have uses, whereas Spreading Plague, you may have a board that's this size, but not this little power.
Right.
Where the Spreading Plague tokens are actually going to fight for you and not just block damage.
Yeah. I think there is some argument to when you're racing Jades back and forth, having the Spreading Plague to maybe buy a couple hits while you summon your Jades to crack right back, but that's a pretty far off call. So I'd like that he's going for it right now and just buying the utility of having these swipes for larger Jades later.
And now Sinto actually had to make a pretty interesting decision there. One, hero power off the 3/1, or just sort of throw away the Wild Growth. Because now with the way things are going, if he plays Ultimate Infestation next turn, his hand's going to be full unless he draws into Arcane Tyrant. And he's worried that maybe a card that would be super valuable would burn on the following turn if he doesn't throw away the Wild Growth now. But he opts to go for killing off the 3/1 instead, play around in combat more. He's either confident that he'll draw Arcane Tyrant, or he's willing to give up a card draw. Or maybe he even has a different plan in mind next turn. Maybe he wants to play the double swipe instead and follow with Ultimate Infestation on the next turn. But Shtan picks up Malfurion, which is a great card in just about any matchup. You're almost never sad to see Malfurion, unless it's in your opening hand, but then you're just happy that at some point in the game you're going to be able to play it.
Well, double swipe's looking a little bit more appealing now, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah. He gets to preserve his entire board if he does that. And slightly punish Dan for going with Poison Spiders. Not really much so.
He doesn't even really need to double swipe. He could just swipe one of the Poison Spiders, hero power the other one, make a Jade guy, hit face. It'll die on the attack back into one of these taunts.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, the one good thing about that play is his Jades are actually quite large right now. That Jade Blossom is a 5/5.
Yeah, he's going to double swipe, though.
And doing it this way makes sure he cashes in on as much damage as possible. I guess it's the same regardless. I think he may push. No, it's the same damage.
Yeah, and he ends up with a great ultimate infestation turn next turn. And Shtan's Jades are not super ramped, so that ult's gonna kill some stuff. And with no card draw left, ShtanUdachi is now officially in trouble.
Yeah, and they go back to the turn where he branching casts and drew 1 card and then gained 6 armor. You know, oftentimes the health total doesn't really make too much of a difference. If you lost, it's because your opponent just got too far ahead on the board, and they would have killed you regardless of your health total anyway on the backswing. But I guess he was expecting to pick up more. I don't know. It was quite a peculiar decision. Very weak turn.
That is the Fandral of a man who's desperate.
I guess he gets an extra 3 armor.
A little bit of a test for Sintolol. If he can't clear off his Fandral, maybe Shtan can rip a Nourish and make something happen.
I mean, even then, I don't know if Sinto has nailed this Fandral as a high priority target. He could probably take this opportunity to just try and Medivh.
What to do?
Just hero power Medivh.
Medivh's big.
Yeah.
And since he would likely hero power afterwards, let's draw a card first.
Yeah, let's draw a card first. Maybe he finds something that's a little bit better.
Like an Eye of Blackpaw.
Nah.
Well, no, what?
I think Medivh, yeah. Medivh all the way. And this needs to be ultimate infestation for ShtanUdachi.
Holy moly.
Now, granted, I still think he's behind. But the one thing that he could do
is draw 5 cards, gain 5 armor, make a 5/5, and draw 5 cards.
Plus, coin out a removal spell if he draws into Jasper Spellstone.
Or like a Jade Idol. With a Fandral on board.
Or Jade Idol with Fandral on board, that's correct. So this coin could come in handy. We'll see exactly what he picks up. There's the Spellstone. And of course it does get the buff when you draw it, so it is now just a regular Jasper Spellstone, that 4 damage, and a Jade Idol, so he's got both. I think Jade Idol, yeah, that's a little bit better in the situation.
And I think Shtan might be finding a clear here. Preserve his own bodies. And that is an awfully big turnaround. I will say, Sintolol's got quite a bit to fight back. Well, buckle in. We got a good old-fashioned slugfest here. Shtan drew another ultimate infestation, by the way. So this could be back-to-back ultimate infestations.
Yeah, but he's ahead on board, but he's behind on just about everything else. Resources with cards. He's behind on the Jade counter, just by 1 now with this Aya played. Well, 2 now with this Jade Blossom's played. Rummaging Kobold, yeah. I think is what that is. Really testing our card knowledge there, Medivh.
Now the fact that Sintolol is getting back on board in such a big way, it makes so much sense when you see it this way, that the Aya comes down after the Medivh. Granted, Forgotten King was a major addition to that hand.
A free 7/7, I'll take it.
But Aya Blackpaw either way was going to present an awkward-looking board state to ShtanUdachi, where the next Jades he made were under threat.
When you play 42,000 games of Hearthstone, you get to know when a match is pretty much lost. And I think this is one of those moments.
I don't know. I'm not convinced yet.
is eternal.
I think it's going to be quite tough.
Is not. My thoughts are plagued.
This is going to be very likely a lot of Jade Idols. He just shuffled some in his deck.
Second Spellstone. And Vandal drawn for Sintolol. He's actually got 20 damage with Branching Paths right now. So I will be curious to see how Sintolol wants to move forward this turn.
Yeah.
The Atiesh is actually making drawing a card with Wild Growth quite awkward at the moment. So I'm wondering if Spreading Plague is ever just a real option for him. Just summon a random 6-cost minion and start pressuring down ShtanUdachi. Like, he didn't kill an Eye of Black Paul, he didn't kill a 6/6 Jade. Like, those are 2 priority threats right now.
I was even looking at Ultimate Infestation. Just discard 2 cards from your deck, but you develop a 5/5 and a 10 drop.
It's not that bad of a plan, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how much does he need the rest of the cards in his deck versus just needing pressure? And this is some pressure, and this is almost guaranteed going to be 2 attack across the board.
Yep.
Now that's the turn.
Showing the flexibility of Branching Paths. It was a card that a lot of players had underrated.
And now I am quite convinced. This was the kind of turn that Sintolol needed to take.
It just took, you know, almost anything from Sintolol's perspective to tip you over. Spreading Plague will buy time, but I mean, you need way more than time. He could Spreading Plague and put 1 Jade Idol behind it, or he could Jade Idol first, Spreading Plague, and not get as many minions.
That's the thing, is like the swipes are gone from ShtanUdachi's deck, so him softening the board position up and then looking to have a big follow-up,
Yeah.
it's not very realistic at this point. So he's quite rapidly entered desperation territory.
So I believe Shtan has a couple of Jade Idols, Jade Blossom, Spellstone, Branching Paths, and Oaken Summons as his last card. So not really anything going for him in the bottom parts of his deck outside of those Jade Idols.
He's eyeing what looks like a pair of Jade Idols, Spreading Plague, and then a Jasper Spellstone, which I quite like in this spot. Can he delay perhaps one of his Jade Idols? Oh, he's taking a different approach here.
Oh, he's trying to play a little bit more greedy. And he's slightly off lethal damage with the Ultimate Infestation. So you can throw the 2/3 attack minions in. He would attack for 21 with his minions. 26. Yep. Be 26 damage with Ultimate Infestation. So now that that's out of the way, once he's done that math, he's going to be thinking how he builds his board to solidify that victory. Now that both Spreading Plagues are gone, he can go a little bit wider on the board if he so chooses. Jay Behemoth would summon an 8/8.
Oh, he's choosing to go for the Nourish instead.
Well, if he picks up Lesser Jasper Spellstone, no, he can't push through. Wait, Wrath plus Lesser Jasper Spellstone, that's 12. Yeah, I think that's enough.
Oh,
12, 15
look at
plus
that.
12, that's exactly 27.
Look at that.
Wow.
Sintolol finds a hidden out here, relying on draws. He's so so far into his deck that he finds the justification for taking that risk on the draw, and it results in him closing the game at what was starting to look like potentially a scary spot.
Yeah, exact lethal too. He knew the cards that were left in his deck. He played the Fantrel for insurance in case he didn't pick up that resource. He still had something on the board because you get the extra 2 mana crystals. You're effectively playing Fantrel for 2, just to make sure.
Well, he needs the Wrath damage, right?
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, but in case he doesn't pick up the Spellstone as well. But well spotted from Sinto, playing a little bit of a different line and drawing the rest of his deck in order to get that done. Very nice.
Yeah, you don't just play with the cards in your hand; you play with the cards in your deck too.
That's right. And of course, besides the matches, we have a ton more going on here at the World Championship stage. And that ton more going on is just Orange posing with fans.
He's got great hair.
He does.
Wish I had hair. Planet
I feel
Odd.
for you, man. I
It's
feel
Planet
for
Odd
you.
fans too. Oh,
Yeah.
look at that!
It's Hoy.
That's an awfully big Planet Odd fan right there.
Yeah. Hoy here to cheer on his teammate Surrender. Hoy going out of the tournament yesterday, but he's had a great year so far, so he should not be disappointed by that at all. But Surrender, he's waiting to play in the next winners match, which is coming up after this one.
That's right.
So a big match for him. That could qualify him to the quarterfinals to potentially join one of these guys, Sintolol or ShtanUdachi. The winner of this match will move on to the quarterfinals as well. And you know, now Sinto's got to be feeling good because the one deck that he has the best percentages against across his whole lineup is Highlander Priest. And that still remains in ShtanUdachi's lineup. He reverse swept Purple's Highlander Priest earlier on in the tournament to make it to this winner's match. So ShtanUdachi's got a big hill to climb if he wants to come out on top of this one. Not only a game deficit in the match, but also some not so great matchups coming up. This one, though, it's pretty good. Pretty good for the Jade Druid.
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup.
Actually, wait, no, this is not Highlander Priest.
No, this is the Dragon Combo Priest.
Now, I actually have a little bit of insight into this. Normally, this match would be pretty tough because a lot of times the Druids can pressure you enough. But what Sintolol has included in this list that not a lot of players do is Mass Dispel, and that allows you to get through Spreading Plague with those big minions and those big threats. So I think Sinto has a very good shot in this game.
Well, it's not only that, it's the fact that he's got the Divine Spirit Interfire combos. You know, ShtanUdachi has to be on alert for that combo to bust through. Anytime Sintolol sticks a high health minion on board and has a good number of cards in hand, ShtanUdachi could be at threat of lethal damage. So it is important for him to be checking his points every step of the way. And that's going to involve things like using the swipe right here just to kill a Twilight Drake. It's so important for him to be chopping into these board states and making sure that Sintolol can't draw a ton of cards so that as he draws Divine Spirit and Interfire separately, they end up being effectively dead draws.
All Radiant Elementals played onto the board, and if that thing sticks around, not only is it a threat for Divine Spirit plus Interfire when it's buffed up, but also if it lives a few turns, Lyra plus a Radiant Elemental on the board is pretty big.
Real decision here for Sintolol now. Does he want to guarantee himself he's got combo or just draw more cards?
I think Power Word Shield is the go-to in a lot of situations.
I like drawing cards.
It's something that you can do immediately. You don't have to rely on these minions sticking around, and eventually you will pick up those combo pieces. Shtan's doing everything he can to fight back, but he desperately needs card draw.
It's a very important note that he's putting a lot of damage into this Radiant Elemental too. You'll see him, I think, oftentimes make a play like that where he sinks some damage into a high health minion, and it looks kind of goofy, but his main goal is to just make sure that Sintolol can't take advantage of high health stuff. So it does cost Shtan quite a bit in the matchup, and I think that's what makes this so interesting. It's like a mini game you're playing. Can you stop your opponent from assembling their combo? Here, it wasn't a combo that Sintolol went for. It was a double Power Word Shield, Cabal Talon Priest, make a big thing, and start hitting stuff.
Well, sometimes against Jade Druid, that's the way to go. You know, you do have still a lot of big, beefy minions in the deck with Draconid Operative, which also acts as a resource generator.
Shtan is in quite a bit of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I would think he might even get to the point where he would Wild Growth just to hope that Ultimate Infestation is the next card for a big swing.
I mean, honestly, what else is he going to draw that really makes a big difference in this spot?
I guess Nourish.
I mean, at 40 life, he feels like he's got plenty of time, which he very well may have.
But the thing about this Dragon Combo Priest is that they don't really need a lot of time. Once they draw those pieces, you're dead.
Oh, my. Whoa.
Yeah, he decides to go for the Nourish as opposed to the Malfurion. Nourish is going to get him closer to his combo pieces. He's putting more faith in his game plan than in just picking one of the strongest cards in Druid. And that was quick, too. He didn't put much thought to that. But he has got to be feeling pretty confident. ShtanUdachi is just sort of playing stuff out. Just a vanilla Arcane Tyrant being thrown on the board for the full 5-mana cost. Vandra with nothing to combo it with, and one card left in the hand. Sintolol may be thinking that this is Ultimate Infestation and may play around that as best as possible.
It could be a number of things, though. Like, it could very easily, I think, be like a Spreading Plague. And I think in some instances this could even be like a Jade Idol or a swipe that couldn't be used. There's quite a few things I think that card could be right now. Oh, wow. Look at that! Wow! I did not see that.
I did not
That
either.
is quite brilliant.
And maybe that was the plan all along.
I'm dumb.
No, he would have had to predict that the Fandral would be the card, but a brilliant play from Sinto, making the very best use of his resources. And you can tell that he's got a lot of practice on this deck, and that was one of the reasons why a lot of other players didn't bring decks like this, was because they weren't 100% sure that they could get to the point where they were mastering these decks enough to beat the best decks in the field. So Sintolol just solidifying his position on this board, and he is hyper-focused.
Oh, that's an interesting turn. I suddenly don't know what to do here.
Wrath for 1 to kill the Radiant. I don't even know. He needs to find more card draw. These small Jades aren't getting the job done. They're not standing up to this board.
What to do?
And 8 life to draw a card is pretty steep. Whoa. I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
But that is a lot of life to pay to draw a card.
Time to go off. Lyra Radiant Elemental. I played Hearthstone enough to know that this is lethal.
Well, looks
Just
like
kidding.
Buck stops there. I wonder if Sinto's going to cycle this this massive spell through. I mean, he's got a significant amount of power on board, so spreading play is just so much weaker to him than it normally would be in this spot.
I mean, just a Lyra on board is quite threatening. You know, if Ultimate Infestation comes out, it would have to come out on Lyra most likely. That combination of cards on the board with Lyra plus Radiant Elemental.
I think this might have been the
very
last
threatening.
chance for Shtan to really get it back in this game. I think he needed Ultimate Infestation right there to really stay in this. So another draw coming, but Sintolol's hand is mighty good.
I would agree with you.
And Shtan, I mean, is he just going to make another Jade here? That's his second Jade Idol. And now it's Swift. I mean, he has very, very little Jade potential left in the deck after this.
And Sinto's just sort of beating him up with minions, not even with the combo. Shadow Form was picked up from the Lyra, so that could be some additional damage. You just have a maximum of
I wonder.
13 damage, because he would have to heal one of his minions, Inner Fire, and then Shadow Form.
Please play the Shadow Form. I just want to see it.
He doesn't really need to heal at this point. He can also just resurrect 2 minions. If he gets Lyra, he can go off again.
Because the spell casts. And there's Lyra. And TJ's seen enough Hearthstone to know that that's lethal.
And ShtanUdachi knows as well. He's played enough Hearthstone to know that that's basically lethal.
Yeah.
Taps out, and Sintolol moves on to the quarterfinals.
That is a well-fought lineup there for Sintolol. He's showing why the strength of this big mage lineup is pulling through. He is cruising through matches once he's facing against these ideal matchups.
Yeah.
The slower ones that aren't so greedy, and being able to outlast them in the longest games.
And these players like Sinto, like Frozen, who are bringing these unique lineups, are having a ton of success, which is really cool to see. And there you can see Sintolol, the winner, one of the winners of Group C, and he's standing by on stage with Frodan.
Congratulations, Sintolol. You advanced first place in your group. Did you expect it to go as smoothly as it has been for you?
I'm happy I didn't have to face Ant because I think I was favored versus Purple and Shtan, so I think I was the favorite in the group, yeah.
Does it mean something extra special that not only are you able to play control lineup, people say you're just an aggro player and an aggro grinder, but also because you did it differently from everyone else with such a cool lineup?
Yeah, that's what happens when you ask Tic Tac for help. Don't ever do that, guys. Even if you're desperate, never ask Tic Tac for help. You're going to bring Control Mage to Worlds.
Well, you end up going to the top 8 in the quarterfinals. So if you listen to Tic Tac and other players, I'm sure you're going to get some good advice. Not looking forward to the quarterfinals. You said that you really want to get top 4, but it seems like you're cruising to your victory. So do you feel like you want even more than that now?
That's a great question. I think I want more than top 4, yes, like everyone else here.
All right, fine. I could do it with a little sarcasm and a little German taste of humor. What are you going to do to prepare for your next coming days here? I think a lot of people have been staying. It's been split between focusing on Hearthstone a lot and then also just relaxing. Some people choose one or the other. What are you going to do?
Probably crack some cold ones with the boys.
Sounds good. A lot of his friends. Sintolol is going to the quarterfinals. A nice round of applause by the local Dutch people. Let's head over to Raven and Sot.